While entire cities shut down for a playoff game, some people genuinely forget it's even happening. No anger, no excitement, no emotional investment at all. And instead of asking, what's wrong with them? Psychology asks a much more interesting question. What's different about the way their minds work? Because not caring about sports isn't apathy. It's not lack of passion. And it's definitely not a personality flaw. In many cases, it's a sign of a completely different cognitive orientation. Let's break it down. First, sports obsession is less about the game and more about shared emotion. When fans watch sports, their brains synchronize with others watching the same event. Heart rates align, emotional spikes happen at the same moments. It creates a rare form of mass emotional unity. For many people, that collective emotional wave is the real reward. People who don't care about sports, their brains don't get much from synchronized emotion. They're less motivated by doing something together, and more motivated by doing something meaningful to them personally. Group excitement doesn't amplify their feelings, it often dulls them. Now here's something most people don't realize. Sports fandom relies heavily on externalized identity. You outsource part of who you are to something outside yourself, a team, a city, a logo, a legacy. When the team wins, your identity feels validated. When it loses, your identity feels threatened. Non-sports people tend to have internalized identity. Their sense of self comes from skills, values, ideas, relationships, or personal progress. Because of that, the success or failure of strangers doesn't register as emotionally relevant. Their self-worth isn't plugged into an external scoreboard. This is why sports arguments feel pointless to them. To a fan, defending their team feels like defending themselves. To a non-fan, it sounds like arguing over someone else's resume. There's also a big difference in how meaning is processed. Sports fans are meaning seekers through outcome. Who won? Who lost? What did it mean? What's the legacy? Non-sports people are meaning seekers through process. How does something work? Why does it matter? What can I learn from it? That's why many non-fans are drawn to psychology, art, philosophy, design, science, or deep one-on-one conversations. They're less interested in who beat who, and more interested in why things are the way they are. Another key difference is emotional pacing. Sports deliver fast, intense emotional spikes. Joy, rage, hope, devastation, compressed into short bursts. Some brains crave that stimulation. Others find it exhausting or overstimulating. Non-sports people often prefer slower, sustained emotional engagement. Reading, building something, thinking, creating, or going deep on a topic over time. This isn't low emotion, it's regulated emotion. And here's a subtle but powerful point. People who don't obsess over sports often have a stronger sense of agency. They're less comfortable investing emotional energy into outcomes they cannot influence. If their effort doesn't matter, their interest fades. That's not detachment. That's selectivity. To them, cheering doesn't feel participatory. It feels observational. Now let's address the stereotype. Non-sports people are often labelled as boring, detached, or antisocial. But psychologically, many of them score higher in introspective depth. They think more before reacting. They question cultural defaults. They're less likely to adopt interests simply because everyone else does. In other words, they don't follow emotional trends easily. And yes, sometimes indifference to sports comes from past experiences, feeling excluded, misunderstood, or pressure to care about something that never resonated. But often, it's simpler than that. Their brains just don't register symbolic competition as meaningful. They're not missing the point, they just see a different one. So when someone says, "I don't get how you don't like sports," what they're really saying is, "I don't get how your mind finds meaning somewhere else." And that's the real divide, not fans versus non-fans, but external meaning versus internal meaning, shared identity versus self-defined identity, spectating life versus directly engaging with it. If you don't obsess over sports, you're not disconnected from humanity. You're just wired to experience purpose, excitement, and fulfillment through a different channel. You're not watching the game, you're playing your own. And here's where it gets even more interesting. People who don't obsess over sports often have a different relationship with time. Sports fandom is very present moment focused. The clock is ticking. Every second matters. Everything is urgent right now. Win or lose happens fast, emotions spike fast, and then it resets for the next game. Non-sports people tend to think in long timelines, years, growth arcs, skill accumulation, personal evolution. They're less interested in momentary wins and more interested in slow compounding progress. That's why many of them gravitate toward careers or interests where results take time. Writing, research, entrepreneurship, mastery-based crafts, self-development. A buzzer beater doesn't impress them. A 5-year transformation does. There's also a massive difference in how conflict is processed. Sports normalize aggression in a socially acceptable way. Trash talk, rivalries, destroying the other team. For many fans, this provides a safe outlet for competitive and aggressive impulses. People who don't enjoy sports often have lower tolerance for symbolic conflict. They don't enjoy simulated battles where nothing materially changes. Their brains ask, what problem did this actually solve? If the answer is none, interest drops instantly. That's why yelling at refs, blaming coaches, or fighting over stats feels absurd to them. Not because they're superior, but because their minds don't get relief from symbolic victory. Another rarely discussed difference is sensory processing. Sports environments are loud, chaotic, emotionally charged. Crowds, commentary, flashing graphics, constant stimulation. Some brains thrive in that environment. Others find it draining or overwhelming. Many non-sports people are more sensitive to sensory overload, which pushes them toward quieter, controlled forms of engagement. They don't want noise, they want clarity. Now let's talk about status signaling, because this matters more than people admit. Sports fandom is a shortcut to social bonding. You instantly belong, you instantly have conversation material, you instantly have shared enemies and shared heroes. For many people, this is incredibly valuable socially. Non-sports people don't rely on shortcuts. They bond through depth, not immediacy. Instead of, did you see the game, they ask, what are you thinking about lately? That kind of bonding takes longer, but it's often stronger and more selective. They'd rather be deeply understood by a few people than loosely connected to many. Here's something subtle but powerful. People who don't obsess over sports are often less emotionally outsourced. They don't give institutions, teams, or public figures permission to dictate their mood. A loss doesn't ruin their week. A win doesn't define their identity. Their emotional baseline stays relatively stable. That doesn't make them cold, it makes them self-contained. And this is why sports conversations sometimes feel like two different languages. Fans talk in emotion, non-fans talk in logic. Fans say, you don't understand how much this means. Non-fans think, I understand, you just value something I don't. Neither is wrong. But they're optimized for different psychological rewards. One last thing most people never consider. Non-sports people often feel a quiet sense of existential responsibility. They're more aware that time, attention, and energy are finite. So they're choosy, very choosy. If something doesn't align with their values, growth, or curiosity, they simply opt out. Not loudly, not judgmentally, just silently. So if you've ever felt out of place in a room full of screaming fans, if you've ever wondered why you feel nothing when everyone else feels everything, if you've ever been told you're missing out and felt confused because you genuinely didn't feel that way, you're not broken. Your brain just isn't wired for borrowed emotion, borrowed identity, or borrowed meaning. You're not watching life happen, you're participating in it, directly. And once you understand that, the silence where sports obsession should be starts to feel less like emptiness and more like space. There's one more difference that rarely gets mentioned. People who don't obsess over sports are often internally stimulated. They don't need constant external excitement to feel engaged. Their minds stay active even in quiet moments. That's why boredom hits them differently. Silence doesn't scare them, it invites thought. Sports fans often use games as emotional punctuation, something to look forward to, something to break routine. Non-sports people create that stimulation themselves through ideas, curiosity, learning, or building something meaningful. This also explains why they're harder to sell hype to. Big moments, dramatic narratives, manufactured excitement. It doesn't land unless it connects to something real. Their brains filter out spectacle and look for substance. So when they say, I just don't care, it's not dismissal, it's discernment. They're not unplugged from emotion, they're selective about where it goes. And that quiet selectiveness, that's not emptiness, that's self-direction. Share your experience in the comments, And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more psychology-based content. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.